AskReddit by Potato. What do you swear you saw, but don't have any proof of? I saw a fox chasing a turkey on a hot summer day. They both tired out and stopped running at the same time and laid down to rest. Then they got up to continue the chase after about a minute. Some absolute cartoon nonsense that I swear happened, but I wouldn't believe me either. On the same vein, I once saw 3 fat as fuck wild turkeys cluck across our backyard in marching order, one right after the other. The kicker? It happened on Thanksgiving Day. A lion at my parents' house when I was a kid. My older brother saw it too. Coincidentally, a lion went missing from a zoo in Ohio around that time and was never found. My brother and I swore we saw it, but obviously had no proof. That winter, my parents found giant paw prints outside that definitely were not a dog, cat, coyote, etc. Years later, when I was a freshman in high school, my friend's mom was driving me home and swore she saw a lion run across the road my parents live on. She never even knew the story about me swearing there was a lion out there. She was so convinced that she immediately called the police. That was all the proof I needed to know I was never crazy and know what I saw as a kid. Edit. It was 2004 to 2006 or so when my brother and I saw it, so prior to the 2011 Zanesville, Ohio incident. The spotting by my mom's friend was around 2012. This fucking thread has convinced me that nearest exotic wildlife safari is not in Africa, but in Godam, Ohio. Sitting at the campsite and a beaver walks out of the lake, like on its hind legs, and proceeds to walk like this through the campsite and into the woods like it's on its way to Pooh's house or whatever. Just strolling. I had a beaver do that while I was night fishing. Walked out of the water on its hind legs less than 6 feet from me. Dropped a load of mud on the sandbar. Turned around and walked back into the water. Paid no attention to me at all. Was living in Japan in a city called Miyazaki. Was watching TV around the Christmas season. Station was MRT as was about 10 PM at night. There was a station ID break and it ended with a full screen large type message in English. Merry Christmas. Fuck you. This was 1993. Hello there, I am living in Japan as well. There is a popular song called Merry Christmas Fuck You by Japanese artist Jet Boys. Maybe they were just copy pasting that song title or were playing that song during that TV show. A corpse in a ditch on the side of the road. I was a kid, told my parents as we drove by and they got mad at me for having such a morbid imagination. That's sad. An unsolved murder in the area I grew up in was discovered when some kids on a school bus saw her body in the ditch as they drove by. Thank goodness the bus driver believed them. I'm sorry your parents didn't believe you. That's some trauma. Sort of a stretch in the question, but when I was a little girl, I had a dream where I lived an entire life. The dream felt like a lifetime. I grew up, got married, had children, grew old with my husband and I died. I still remember the piece of dying and thinking to myself that I was so happy and lucky for the blessed life I lived. As me and my husband get older, he starts to look and feel more like the man I grew old next to in my dream. I woke up right after I died, crying. I couldn't have been more than 9 or 10. A few months ago on Reddit I read an account of lifetime in one dream. A few others joined in with their experience. Just a few. I tried googling it and seeing if there were others. I came up dry. This is such a fascinating experience. I'd love to find out more. I was doing laundry and after opening the door to take the clothes from the washer, a live grasshopper flew out and hit me in the chest. It scared the shit out of me because it was so unexpected. A grasshopper somehow got into my laundry, survived the entire wash cycle, and had enough life in him to jump out and hit me. I threw him back outside. I joke and say he's immortal. He's probably still out there somewhere. Good thing you freed him. He'll owe you a favor in your darkest hour. Nirvana in concert in a freaking gym in Bellingham. Washington in 1992. My college friend swears during a night of bar hopping we saw Nirvana in a dive skater bar in July 1989 in Carbondale, IL. It's an urban legend now, but my friend swears we were there and only a dozen or so people were there. I so wish I could remember that. Some kind of ape thing that ran out of a house, shook its butt and then ran back in a house. But the doors were closed. It never opened the door, just ran right through it both times. Crazy thing is, I was like 13 and my 12-year-old cousin was with me and we still talk about it to this day. We saw the same exact thing. I'm 32 and he's 31. It's the Jersey butt devil. I saw an ivory-billed woodpecker in college. I'm not a bird enthusiast or anything, but I saw this giant woodpecker pecking weird and I watched it until it flew off. A day or two later I saw on the news that one had been spotted near my area and that was a big deal because they were declared extinct in 1944. Did you happen to be in North Florida like the person above your comment? Haha. To back-to-back posts about seeing an ivory-billed woodpecker. When I was little, I was in bed between my parents one night. They were sleeping but I was awake in the dark. I swear I saw the apparition of a young boy, around my age at the time, 6, climbing on the nightstand. I remember vividly he had a white and red basketball jersey on, with a dark brown bowl cut. A few years later, on the first day of 4th grade, a new student came in the classroom, literally took my breath away. He looked exactly like the ghost boy I saw that night. I swear I saw a man walk backwards up a hill and disappear. He went out of my line of sight as he walked behind a tree and never came out the other side. I checked the tree and everything. It scared the crap out of me. This one oddly scared me those most. Very creepy. Kathy Bates. I was working the closing shift at a Publix in Atlanta as a bagger and I swear I saw her start to leave. I went up and went, "Excuse me, did you know you look like?" The woman interrupted and went, "Kathy Bates." "Yes, I know." Then she smiled and walked out of the store. My ex-girlfriend's mom looked a lot like Jamie Lee Curtis. So this woman at the gym goes up to her and says, "Hey, has anyone told you that you look like Jamie Lee Curtis?" And she was like, "Yeah, I get that all the time." Then the lady said, "Well, has anyone ever told you that you look like me?" It was actually Jamie Lee Curtis. No, this is not a made-up story. An ocelot behind a North Carolina dumpster and a zebra running in a ditch on I-40. Also in North Carolina. I believe you. Near my parents, the neighbor down the road called and swore he saw an emu running around. This is in the middle of winter in rural Minnesota. Turns out an emu escaped from some animal rescue in the area. A comet or something exploded into a giant green fireball when I was a kid. Edit. In no way did I think a throwaway comment before class would get this much attention. Seems like a lot of youths have seen bolides or aliens. Nice, I've seen one do that in a meteor shower once. I know goddamn well I saw a zebra grazing in a pasture while visiting colleges in northern central Ohio. This was a good 15 years ago. There was for sure a zebra near Granville, Ohio, eastern central. Haven't seen it for a while though. I went on my honeymoon at the Sandals Grand in St. Lucia. I went scuba diving one day, just from the resort course, so not deeper than 30-50 feet or whatever. I was out by myself with an instructor in the shallow ocean, and didn't bring a camera on that particular dive. I swear I saw a full office-spaced laser printer on the ocean floor. Pieces everywhere. But I don't have any proof. I gotta say, of all the things you could have seen snorkeling, a goddamn laser printer is probably the last item I would have ever guessed. Me and a buddy were laying on some playground equipment after a night of drinking when both of us at the same time go, "What's that?" There was a light up in the sky about twice as bright as the stars around it, staying still in the sky, that we hadn't noticed before. Suddenly it picks up speed, goes from directly overhead to over the horizon in about 5 seconds. A few times now, while stargazing, One of the stars will just zip right off somewhere. It's kinda funny like, oh, well that wasn't a star. Faceless people. Once standing under the light outside my grandparents' garage. When I asked my grandfather to look, nobody was there and he said he never saw anyone. The second time, I was being kept out of my grandparents' living room, and when I accidentally walked in, one was lying on the sofa bed. When later asked about being kept out of the room, my grandmother denied it ever happened. Still a vivid set of memories from my childhood. No explanation. Well, this one gave me goosebumps. I remember being born. Being formless but in a long line waiting to be ushered through this crack in space reality. After walking through, it was pitch black and I could hear and feel enormous water rushing past me. And then I was me. And shadow people, black smoke cloud entities when I was a kid. My sister experienced something similar. She remembers being born and remembers picking which family she went to. Driving down the freeway through a major military base. About a mile in front of us, a huge bolt of electricity, I'd presume lightning, struck a tree about 25 yards off the road. As we came up to it, there's a bunch of white econo vans, white coats and instrumentation looking stuff on a table and other equipment. No tree on fire. Get back home, research the hell out of it and could find nothing. Buddy and I still agree today, what we saw. No record of any kind of it or the area or anything. Ball lightning. Back when I was a kid, I remember my mom telling a story about how she saw a ball of lightning roll across the backyard when she was a kid and nobody ever believed her. A white rainbow, no color, just white, at night time in the middle of a field. This is called a moonbow. Driving on a semi-rural road south of Salem, Oregon about 15 years ago, I swear I saw some cryptid looking bipedal wolf thing. My GF at the time was with me and we both saw it. Didn't really talk about it, just kinda accepted we saw something we couldn't explain. I worked in Medford back in 2008 to 2010. I was doing a little weekend trip with a girlfriend at the time. We were on the 20 between Corvallis and Newport. We both saw a bipedal wolf thing also. He must have been a good 6 feet tall. We saw him running across the highway at dusk. When we passed the spot he crossed, we looked up into the trees and saw something glaring from the trees. We drove our asses off the rest of the evening, lol. An absolutely colossal earthworm. It must have been 4 inches in diameter. I was just a kid and was coming out of my front lawn. I panicked and stomped the ground to scare it away and it worked, and every day I have regretted it since because I have absolutely no proof of this giant fucking monster living in my front yard. Australia has a giant earthworm that can grow to 3 meters, 9.8 feet, in length. When its body compresses, it can get really wide. Maybe Canada has something similar?